Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. I'm back to break down my top stacks for this NFL Week 10 DFS slate on DraftKings. Before we get into it, if you could please leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any future content that I upload. That would be greatly appreciated. And I have released multiple NFL packages over there on Patreon. Go ahead and check those out where you can get access to things like my play calling pace chart that you see on the screen right now, my matchup charts, my target sheets, all of my projections, and even more. So go ahead and check that out, link in the description. I think it's going to provide you with value and give you a leg up on the rest of the field week in and week out, being able to look at these spreadsheets and breaking it down from an analytical standpoint so you can figure out the best plays. I do give you guys a little bit of a sneak peek in these videos because I don't want to keep everything behind the paywall. I want to give back to my viewers, but if you want the good stuff, go ahead and check it out, link in the description. And with that being said, let's go ahead and start breaking down my top stacks. So we're going to go game by game, looking at the Vegas data, look at some of how these games have been trending. The first game that I'm definitely interested in having some, stacks is this Philadelphia Eagles New York Giants game. The line's been climbing up a little bit, opened at a total of 44.5, and it's currently, opened at a total of 41, and it's currently live at 44.5. So we've seen that bump up 3.5 points. You always like to see that. 2.2 point increase for the Eagles and a 1.2 increase for the Giants. And I do think that the way these teams are laid out, that they're easy to stack up because we know who they're throwing the ball to, and that's what we're looking for in these stacks. We want teams that are easy to stack. We know where the ball's going. We want some upside as far as the total's concerned. But, I mean, the target share and it being condensed is very important. So first on the Eagles side of the ball, looking at my play calling pace chart, we can see that they've been a very pass-heavy offense this year, about passing the ball about 61.4% of the time and running about 38.6% of the time, on average running about 38 pass attempts, pass plays per game. And I do think that this is a team that the target share is really condensed. So Alshon Jeffrey does look like he's coming back this week. However, with that being said, they're looking like they're going to limit him. I mean, he's been out all year. They're looking to kind of ease him back into play. So I don't really think he's going to be taking a large target share away from the rest of these wide receivers that have been getting targeted so heavily due to all the Eagles' injuries this year. And, there's no Zach Ertz, so I think Dallas Goedert's a viable option at the tight end option. He's the first guy that I'll mention in this offense as far as the stack's concerned. Hasn't really got it going, and it's not like he has the best matchup against these Giants as far as their points given up to the tight end position. But with no Zach Ertz, I do think that he sees his targets increase. And then I'm more interested in the wide receivers, really. I had mentioned in my wide receiver breakdown video, if you watched that earlier in the week, I really like Travis Fulgham at his 6'4" price tag. His involvement in the offense has been very large as of late. 7 targets, 11 targets, 10 targets, 13 targets. He's really showing out in the DK points category, 34, 19, 12, 19, and I do think that this is a great spot for Fulgham. But specifically, a guy that I'm really interested in is that in Jalen Reagor, because Jalen Reagor is way underpriced on DraftKings this week as far as I'm concerned. We saw him get targeted 6 times last week. He had, only 16 yards, but he was able to get in the end zone, and I do think that at his 4.2 price tag, he can easily excel, go flying past that. And to be honest, in my projection model this week, my projections are just absolutely loving him. So he's a guy that I definitely have interest in. So as far as stacking this team up, I'm looking to put Wentz in. I'm looking to stack him up with Jalen Reagor and Travis Fulgham, and then you could instead replace one of them with a Goddard if you can't quite fit at the salary, like to get into a Fulgham, etc. On the Giants side of the ball, we can see that they have passed the ball not quite as much as the Eagles, but pretty close. I mean, 59.2% of the time they're passing the ball. That's just a hair under the Eagles. So you like to see that when you're stacking up a team. You want them to be throwing the ball. 34 pass attempts per game. So, they're not running as many plays per game as the Eagles. Unfortunately, their pace is a little bit down. They're only running 58 plays a game compared to the Eagles' 63, so pace is a little down. But when they are facing the Eagles, that might force them to ramp up the pace. And specifically, the guys that I'm looking to target, I had mentioned in my earlier videos, I definitely do like Darius Slayton in this spot. A guy that hasn't really been performing, honestly. Like, hasn't had a big game since week 5 against Dallas, and we all know that Dallas's secondary is not the strongest. If you don't know, Dallas's secondary is terrible. So he had a good game against them, but he did have a big game against Pitt week 1, and they're not a good matchup. So He's just been a little inconsistent, but he has the upside. He has the downfield targets, and I do think that Darius Slayton's at a great spot. And then he's just grading out really good in my projections this week, so I definitely like Darius Slayton, and I definitely like Evan Ingram because the Eagles have been one of the worst teams in the league against tight ends. I discussed this earlier in the week, and Evan Ingram, just a guy that looks really good in my model this week, and at his price tag at 4.5, I do think that he's a great option to stack up. So definitely looking to game stack this Eagles game. I mean, I'm always looking this Eagles Giants game. I'm always looking to game stack. If you are playing these big field tournaments, you're going to need the game stack. It's proven. If you look at the data and the history of these guys that are winning all these big prize pools, that's what they do. You got to have a game stack. You got to play QB with two of his weapons and then run it back with another guy on the other side, or even maybe play a QB with three of his weapons and then run it back with two guys on the other side. That's what you're looking to do. So as far as this first game, I do like Carson Wentz. I do like Daniel Jones, stacking them up with the wide receivers. And I'm looking to stack up Jones with Slayton and Ingram primarily. And on the Eagles side of the ball, I'm looking to stack up Carson Wentz with Jalen Reagor and Travis Fulgham. So great game stack opportunity there. First place to have interest for sure as far as stacks are concerned. Moving further along, the next game that I want to talk about is this Jaguars Packers game. However, I will fully admit I'm only interested on one side of the ball in this game, and it's definitely the Packers. I mean, they come in with a 30.75 implied live total. It has gone down a little bit compared to their opening. It's gone down 3 points, but I don't really care, to be honest. I mean, a 30.75 implied team total is tremendous. And specifically when looking at the Green Bay Packers, we know exactly where all their targets are going, and that's where I love the spot. I think that this is a unique spot where you can go ahead and play Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, that's the QB we want to start with at the helm of this Green Bay Packers team. You got to get him in your lineups. He's a guy that has a ton of fantasy upside, but the guys that we're going to stack him, I think that we can target Aaron Jones as a running back. I think Aaron Jones' target share on the offense is enough to get him involved in my stacks. And then not to mention, when they're such large favorites, I mean, the spread in this game currently is a 14-point spread. He's going to get a lot of runs later in the game. So I love Aaron Jones this week. I definitely want to be getting him in the lineups, and I do think it's a unique situation where we can stack him with his QB because of the target share he's had. When looking at my target sheet, we can see that Aaron Jones is the 13th highest targeted running back in the league as far as targets this year. And when you're looking at his game log, let's not forget that he did actually miss a game or two, week 6, 7, 8, 2 weeks missed there. So, I mean, you factor in that he's missed time, you factor in that he's one of the best target share backs in the league, and I just love him, stacking him up with Aaron Rodgers. And then, of course, don't forget about Davante Adams, because Davante Adams has been the number one player in fantasy lately. He's just been absolutely going off. Looking at his game log, these points he's putting up are absolutely ridiculous. 36, 30, 47 the last 3 weeks, just going off week in and week out. And, I mean, last week he did it against San Francisco, which is just real impressive because they're not one of the better matchups to face. As a matter of fact, they're one of the toughest as far as matchups are concerned. So if you can go off against them, they can go off against anyone. And just looking at his target share, 12, 11, 16, 10, getting targeted a crazy amount. So I do think that we can play the three-headed monster, so to speak, in this game with Rodgers, play the tailback, and Jones, who will get targeted early in the game. And I do think he's going to get a bunch of running opportunities later in the game because they're projected to be up by a bunch of points, and then play the number one target in Davante Adams. Easy stack there. My only concern is them just getting ahead so much that is limiting the upside of Rodgers and Adams. And then all the workload goes to Jones, of course. So maybe just play Jones and not stack up this team. But I have interest in the stack. I have to mention it. A 30.75 implied live total. Got to have interest in stacking up this Green Bay Packers team. Moving further along, the next stack that I want to discuss in this game-by-game breakdown is definitely this San Diego, or not San Diego no longer, but the Chargers and the Dolphins. Very high total in this one, and I think, once again, it's a great spot to target because we know where the targets are going. There's currently a 48-point live over-under for this game. And a lot of these guys in this game are grading out very good on my projections. Specifically on the Los Angeles Chargers, a guy that's definitely standing on my projections is that Mr. Justin Herbert. Absolutely popping up the sheet as far as my projections are concerned compared to his salary. He comes in at 6'6" this week. The guy's been putting up numbers all year long. He's looked really impressive. And when looking at the matchup that he gets to take on this week in the Miami Dolphins, we can see that they are the 14th best team to target for quarterbacks, giving up about 20.2 DK points a game. And while that's not the best, matchup on the slate, I don't really care with the way this guy's been playing, and I love the target share on this offense. It's very predictable. The first guy that we're going to want to target is Keenan Allen, no doubt. The guy is a target share beast. He's been putting up numbers all year long. Last 3 weeks, 11 targets, 12 targets, 13 targets, 25, 21, and 28 DK points. Just absolutely killing it out there, and I think he's in a great spot to continue to do that this week. And the next guy, well, I mean, the other side of the ball, don't forget about Mike Williams, because he's an athletic receiver that can definitely go get it, and he's a great red zone threat, so we don't want to forget about that. We can definitely stack him up. I mean, Keenan Allen's our preferred option, but Mike Williams has the upside as well, so don't forget about him in your stacks. And then we definitely have a viable tight end option in Hunter Henry, because I think Hunter Henry is, a tight end that's not really talked about enough in fantasy. When you look at his target share, 8 targets, 7 targets, 4 targets, 7 targets, and while his DK point totals aren't exactly the highest, 12, 5, 7, 7, I mean, those won't blow you away. I do think that this is a great stack spot because we know where the ball's going. We know it's going to those 3 guys mainly. So I definitely like the Charger side of the ball. And then moving over on the other side to the Dolphins. The only thing with the Dolphins as far as their pass attempts per game, it's not exactly the best. I mean, the Chargers have 38 pass attempts per game compared to the Dolphins only 31. However, that's using a lot of data with Tua not in the game, and I do think that Tua is a viable option this week to stack up with his wide receivers. So far, last week he had a 21-point total. He was only 5,500, and this week he's 5,600, so I do think he's viable. And as far as his targets are concerned, we know where the ball's going as well. Devontae Parker is our first option that we want to talk about. Definitely have a ton of interest in him. Last week, you could see he had 7 targets, 12 points. He didn't get in the end zone, though. If he got in the end zone, I think that's, obviously a whole different line that bumps him up a lot. And he's only 5K, so like to stack him up. And then you can always go to the tight end over here with Gesicki, another guy that's got a pretty decent target share in the offense. Nothing crazy, but 6 targets, 2 targets, 2 guards, 4 targets. And I do think that he's going to see some looks in the red zone. So another game to have interest in. 25 implied total for the Dolphins, 23 implied total for the Chargers. Definitely think you can have interest in stacking up that spot right there. The Bills-Cardinals game is a spot that's been talked about a lot this week. I keep just seeing Bills-Cardinals, Bills-Cardinals, and I think that a lot of people are going to have it. It's not that it's not a bad stack, but I mean, this tournament's my top stack videos, this is designed to be a tournament video, guys. I mean, if you want cash plays, look elsewhere. This is the stacks we're looking to stack up in tournaments. So I'm not mentioning this game. I get that it's a good spot. I get that the total's so high. I mean, we've seen the line climbing 3 points for the Cardinals and 1.2 for the Bills. I'm not saying this is a bad spot, but I think it's going to be just incredibly highly owned. And it's a 56 implied total. And we've already gone over these other games that are pretty close to that total. I mean, we just went over the Chargers-Dolphins game, and currently the live over-under is at 48. It's not like that's a crazy difference. I get that it's significant because, we're talking a few points, and usually that's pretty significant when it comes to Vegas odds, but it's just a spot that I'm fading this week because of all the ownership. I think there's other places that we can go, and the next spot that I'm going to talk about is one of those places in this Denver Broncos-Raiders game. We're looking at my play calling pace chart for the Denver Broncos. You can see that they've been passing the ball a tremendous amount. They run 58.9% pass plays compared to 41.1% run plays, and I think that has a lot to do with the fact that they're constantly behind in games. But guess what? We don't care because we like that in fantasy sports. We want our quarterback to be throwing, and they are a 4.5 point dog in this one, or actually now 3.5. Opened at 4.5, down to 3.5, but still, they're the dog on this one, so they're expected to be playing from behind. And when looking at the target share on this offense, we know where the ball is going. First guy I want to mention is Jerry Jeudy, number 18 in the league in targets. He has 61 targets on the year so far. And then don't forget about the tight end and Noah Fant. So, I mean, that's where I'm going when I'm stacking up this team. Those two guys definitely my top priorities to be stacking it up with. So, if I'm looking to stack up this game, I'm throwing in Drew Lock, who had a huge week last week, 33 DraftKings points against the Atlanta Falcons. We know the Atlanta Falcons are a great matchup. But when looking at the Las Vegas Raiders and as far as they fare against QBs this year, we can see that they are the 10th best team to target, and the Broncos are the 7th best team to target. So 10th best team to target as far as QBs are concerned, giving up 21.2 DK points a game on average. And I definitely think that this is a viable spot to be playing some stacks for all of these reasons. You look at the Vegas line, you look at the matchups, and I like it. So Drew Lock, you're going to be stacking him up with Jerry Jeudy, who is questionable in this one. So we'll have to keep an eye on his status leading up to Sunday. But he didn't practice Wednesday, and then he had limited sessions Thursday and Friday. So I tend to think that he's going to be able to play, and then it says that Coach Vic Fangio is pretty confident that Jeudy will be able to play when Sunday's game kicks off at 4:05. So I wouldn't worry about it. I think he's going to be in there. I think he's fine. I think they're just erring on the side of caution. Definitely have interest in Jeudy, and then like I said, I definitely have interest in Fant on the other side of the ball. A guy that's definitely been involved in the offense a lot. 7 targets, 9 targets, 3 targets last week, but I think that's a little bit of an outlier, and I think he'll be back to getting that large target share this week. And then, of course, you can always throw in Tim Patrick as well to round out your stacks. A guy that's seen 8 targets, 7 targets, 4 targets, 9 targets. So definitely involved in the offense. Like those guys stacking up the Denver side of the ball and then running it back on the other side with the Raiders, a team that has run the ball a lot. So that's a little unfortunate. However, a 27 implied total, I am definitely going to still have interest in this stack. And the guys that I'm going to be looking to play, of course, you got to play the QB and Derek Carr. Looking at his game logs, he hasn't had a big game in a while, but we like to see that in tournaments because it's going to keep his ownership lower. And I'm looking to stack him up with his main targets in Ruggs, Aguilar, and Darren Waller. I mean, Ruggs really hasn't shown out the last 3 games. He's been putting up duds. And since he had that big 22-point game in Week 5, he hasn't done anything. So he's a big all-or-nothing play. Aguilar's a guy that has definitely been a little more consistent. 13 points, 24 points, 14 points, 14 points, and he's got the target share 4, 9, 2, 3. I mean, specifically in the red zone, you like to see the touchdowns, and Aguilar has been producing as far as getting in the end zone. So you like that, but I mean, my number one guy that I'm definitely going to is Darren Waller. Darren Waller is just an absolute beast. He's, a wide receiver that plays tight end pretty much. He can go downfield. He can go up and get it. He's got 10 targets, 6 targets, 9 targets, 7 targets. Very involved in the offense, and I absolutely love him. Highlight of my tight end video this week. If you haven't seen that, check that out. But love Darren Waller, and he's the guy that I'm definitely looking to get in those stacks. One last game we got to talk about as far as stacks this week, and that is definitely this last game. And it could be my favorite spot, honestly, because I think we all know. If you don't know by now and you haven't been playing NFL DFS, I'm going to give you a little hint here. The Seattle Seahawks cannot guard anyone. Their secondary is terrible. You want to play QB against the Seattle Seahawks every week, and if you do, you're probably going to be happy with the money that's in your DraftKings account come Monday, because the Seahawks have just been absolutely terrible against QBs. Just terrible against offenses. Secondary is terrible. Number 1 team to target in terms of DK points given up a game to QBs, 27.9 DK points a game. That is terrible. That is way worse than anyone else in the league. It's not even close. And I absolutely love me some Rams stacks this week. They have been passing the ball at a less than impressive clip. However, they're running about 67 plays per game, which really stands out on my play calling pace chart, because that's a tremendous pace, running a lot of plays. So I definitely like the Rams, and I like them specifically because we know exactly where the ball is going. When looking at my target sheet, we have guys in Cooper Kupp. He's number 9 in the league, and then don't forget about his counterpart Woods on the other side of the ball. I like both of these guys a lot this week. They're both grading out very good in my projections, and I definitely have a ton of interest in stacking up this Rams team. So We're looking to put Goff in our lineups. Looking at how he's fared, really not any big games lately, 17, 16, 15, but like I said, they have been running the ball a lot. And then when you look at his weapons, I think it's really obvious who you stack them up with. You throw in Kupp in your lineup and you throw in Woods, and if you're really confident about it. Kupp's chemistry with Goff is a well-known thing around the league. These two guys absolutely love each other. Last week, he saw 20 targets. I cannot emphasize that enough. That is absolutely ridiculous. You do not see that. 20 targets, 25 DK points. He didn't get in the end zone. Imagine if he got in the end zone. That's just a huge week, and I think that he could definitely have another one this week, taking on this Seattle Seahawks team that's just so terrible. And then when you look at Woods' game logs, 8 targets, 5 targets, 10 targets. Both of these guys are due for an explosion here. I love this stack. Probably my favorite stack of the week. Save the best for last. Love them. And then you got to look on the other side of the ball because, like I said, we're always looking at game stack at tournaments. That's how you win these tournaments, in my opinion. And the Rams are one of the best secondaries in the league, unfortunately. So when you're running it back with the Seahawks team, it's a little unfortunate. But when you're looking at my play calling pace chart, you can see that the Seahawks have been passing the ball a tremendous amount. They pass the ball 60.6% of the time compared to 39.4% in the run category, and they're running on average 61 plays per game. So, they're just throwing the ball a ton. They've been down a lot in these games, but once again, we like to see that. We don't mind at all, and they're expected to stay in this game. I think it's just going to be an absolute shootout. I love this game. Opened at a 55.5 implied total. It's currently live at 54.5, and I'm really hoping that everyone goes to that Buffalo Arizona game because this is my favorite game of the week. I just love this spot. And as far as the Seahawks side, who I'm looking to run it back with, you got to like Russell Wilson, of course, and then who you're putting in your lineups with Russell Wilson. You got to start with DK Metcalf. Guy's looking like a real stud. He's just a man amongst the boys out there. This guy's a beast. 9 targets, 15 targets, 5 targets. It was a little bit of a down week, but 11 targets against the Vikings. He's getting a ton of targets, and he's just going beast mode. 1 touchdown last week, 2 touchdowns, 2 touchdowns. The upside's there. And at 7.6, I definitely think he can excel past that. And then, of course, you can't forget about Tyler Lockett on the other side. The only thing that really stinks about stacking up the Seahawks team is it seems as if you cannot play Lockett and Metcalf. However, Metcalf seems to be the breakaway #1 target, and while that might be the case, they might be focusing on him a little bit more in the game plan, and maybe we can get a Tyler Lockett low-owned, and he can have an explosion game. He's had a few this year, 56 points against the Cardinals, 40 points against Dallas, and the last 2 times out, he's been really popular, and he's really let people down. So as far as from a tournament aspect, you love to see that. He's been a guy that everyone's just tilting their heads off about every single week because they're expected. He's in these great spots and he's expected to go out there and explode, and he just hasn't been doing it. So, me personally, I like to see that. It's great. It's just going to lower his ownership, and I definitely like Tyler Lockett because of that. You factor in the matchup, it's not great. You factor in that he's put up a dud the last few weeks, not great. Everyone's mad about it. That's just what happens when these guys are so popular and they don't do anything. So I definitely like Tyler Lockett. I think that recency bias can get the best of some people, and they're going to miss out on a big week from him this week. So those are my top stack options for this Week 10 NFL DFS slate on DraftKings. If you enjoyed the content, please leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any future videos. I greatly appreciate that, guys. It's going to help me grow the channel. And I'll be here the rest of the NFL season giving you guys some good plays to help you with the lineups. And don't forget to check out my Patreon package, linked below in the description, where you can get access to all my projections, all that good stuff. I've been working hard on that. Try to give you guys an edge over the field, give you some tools that not everyone else has access to. And I'm paying attention to weather, adjusting my projections, factoring all these things in. So appreciate you guys tuning in. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I will be back with the next video, my final look of the slate, going over my entire final outlook of the slate leading up until Sunday.